The clock was ticking. The teacher warned me that the English exam was still 10 minutes away. You had to check your name and card number before submitting your work. The students were worried, and one of them whispered that it was all over. The second one asked who had the spurs with the answers to the questions. The first one told him that a student named Lin Tian should have brought spurs. Both of them looked at Lin Tian to see what he was doing during the exam. It turned out that the student was asleep. A WW University student named Lin Tian was happy because he could eat and drink every day. Lin Tian once asked for the addition of a 5th bowl of plain white rice. The cook was surprised by his food and asked if he just wanted to buy some delicious food. To this suggestion, the student proudly replied that he would not buy it, since he had no money. One of the students pointed a finger at Lin Tian, saying that he couldn't even afford to buy food, and also used a plastic bag instead of a school bag. Another called Lin a poor guy, not understanding why he is so poor, because he looks good. Lin Tian, on the other hand, only showed off himself to others, a chic fashionista, as he called himself. He was poor until one day. Everything started to change when Lin came to retake the exam. The teacher made a comment to the student, pointing out that he was sleeping again and probably wanted to be expelled because Lin Tian did not answer any of the questions. Indifferent to the comment, Lin replied that he still had 10 minutes left to write the exam. Laughing, the teacher asked Lin Tian what he would be able to do in the remaining time. Addressing everyone in the class, the teacher loudly and angrily said that she had seen a lot of tests from poor and stupid students who could not do well in school and who did not have the means to pay for their studies. She called everyone a burden to the school. Placing the exam paper in front of Lin Tian, the teacher assigned Lin to the poor students he belongs to, having no power, influence, or brains, and gave her advice that it was time to stop daydreaming. Continuing to shout at Lin, the teacher didn't understand what could have happened in 10 minutes. Did the student really hope that the answers could appear in the sky? Lin chuckled, his face breaking into a grin. Turning to the teacher with the same emotions on his face, the student replied, "What if he said that the answers would actually appear in the sky?" Suddenly, a long poster with letters was posted outside the classroom window, and Lin Tian didn't hide his smile. This poster came from a helicopter that stopped right in the last few minutes. The disheveled teacher didn't understand anything. All the students were watching the helicopter poster. At this time, Lin Tian was writing on the exam paper. As it turned out, the poster was filled with answers. Happy Lin told the others not to wait, but to hurry up and write off. The guys cheered, calling Lin the best. The student handed in his paper with written exam answers. Lin Tian called his fellow students ladies and gentlemen and said that it was time for him to go. An angry teacher yelled at everyone to stop cheating. Pointing her finger at Lin, she said that he would get 0 points for retaking the exam, since he was cheating on the exam. One of the helicopter passengers shouted that everything was done according to the instructions and asked where the money was. Opening the window, Lin Tian picked up his plastic bag. Lin stepped out onto the windowsill. The student threw his bag, from which paper bills fell, saying that there was more than necessary and he did not need change. The helicopter passenger pointed his hands to catch Tench's package. The joyful students couldn't tear themselves away from the money in the air. They started grabbing what they could. The teacher was shocked and confused. After saying goodbye to her, Lin said that he had to catch the school bus, and if he was late, there might not be any seats available. Lin said to himself that this case was sweaty, but it worked out for him. Suddenly, a certain system appeared in front of Lin, and he pointed his finger at the system indicator. There was a beginner's assignment written on it, telling him to use 150,000 yuan in cash in any convenient way for Lin during the exam. This task was completed. The system that appeared in front of Lin Tian a week ago was called the Kaienjin spending system. A week earlier, Lin had been waiting in line at a self-service bank for a long time. Looking at his bag of bills, Lin Tian told himself that saving money was very difficult. The money brought in is Lin Tian's entire monthly salary. The student told himself that even a burglar wouldn't look at such a small sum. At the same moment, a shot was fired. 6 robbers broke into the bank. One of them said to lie down on the floor, as it was a robbery. Lin Tian admitted that the words he said earlier were just thoughts out loud. He didn't want anyone to be robbed. The robber pointed the gun, threatening the victims to sit and keep a low profile. He kept everyone under control and made sure they didn't run away. At this time, Lin Tian started to look around. The robber noticed the student's actions. The thief put the muzzle to Lin's head, asking him what he was doing. The robber, without removing the gun, glared at the student and waited for his answer. Lin Tian replied that his ass was scratching and he was trying to scratch it. In his mind, Lin reasoned that no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. He couldn't let them steal the 200 yuan he had in his back pocket. The robber didn't take the gun away from Lin's head. Suddenly, someone suddenly groaned loudly, which surprised everyone, including the robber himself. For Lin, this shout was a good chance to escape. Lin Tian crouched down, turned around, and slowly walked away from the robber. It turned out that another robber molested a girl, one of the victims. The girl tried to evade the pervert. The main robber made a remark to a pervert robber named Mouse that they were in the process of being robbed, and he was pestering the girl again. Mouse turned away from the victim for a few seconds to tell the boss that the girl was beautiful. The girl shouted indignantly that she would rather die than be with a scoundrel like Mouse. At this time, Lin Tian pressed the emergency switch. On his way out, Lin opened the door and stopped. Mouse continued to molest the girl, and she resisted. Lin turned away from the exit and shouted at Mouse to let go of the girl. And if he has something to say, then let him speak to the student. As long as he lets Lin Tian's class teacher said, go. Lin added that if Mouse was going to rob him, he'd better let him rob Teacher Chen. Addressing Lin, the head robber called him a shithead and asked when the student managed to open the door. While walking, Lin suggested that the robber just talk without quarreling. Suddenly, a shot was fired. Lin could see the bullet coming straight at him. The bullet hit Lin. Speechless, the student wondered if he was going to die just like that, and immediately he gave the answer that no, he can't die. At the very least, Lin requested that he at least spend the 200 yuan before he died. A certain system suddenly appeared in front of Lin Tian's face, where there was a task to use 1 million in 3 minutes, and the reward for this task was to avoid death and gain access to this system. The head robber was standing in front of Lin again, watching everything. Leaning the gun against the student's head, the robber asked him what he was doing. At first, Lin didn't believe that he had gone back 3 minutes until he looked at the wall clock. In 3 minutes, Lin Tian would be dead. The robber's boss called Lin suspicious. Because the student looked in his direction, the boss asked him what he was looking at, and if he looked at him again, the robber would put a bullet in him. In his mind, Lin Tian viciously said that the robber had already shot him once. Lin started making excuses. The boss shouted at the student to stop mumbling and talk. Unexpectedly, Lin Tian pointed his finger at Mouse, saying that he had dropped the money, and Lin wanted to politely tell him so. Mouse asked in surprise what kind of money the student was talking about. The boss shouted to his subordinate to quickly show him the money. Lin surreptitiously looked in Teacher Sen's direction and winked at her. The teacher was surprised when she saw her student and wondered in her mind what he was doing here. Lin Tian walked up to Mouse, pointing down, saying that the robber had dropped the money he had tied to his leg. Mouse was confused, and the robber's money was actually tied to his legs, spilling out from under his pants. The robber's boss was angry with Mouse. Lin told them what he thought was true. Even though the robbers had money transfer bags, Mouse was so pathetic that he had to use his pants. Mouse was viciously indignant and denied everything Lin said and said that it had nothing to do with him. Lin Tian was dramatic and said that even if Mouse filled his pants completely, it would only be a few thousand yuan at most. Lin suggested that we go find a bag for Mouse. The pervert robber has so far denied everything and suggested that it could have been a ruse. Standing in front of his teacher and looking in the direction of the robbers, Lin said that he was just a nice guy. He said that the boss wasn't stupid enough to hide it from him. Lin took his teacher's hand and helped her up. After calling Teacher Sen a beauty, the student began to say something confidently. Turning to face the teacher, Lin Tian whispered to her to be quiet and play along with him. Lin shook his right hand. In this hand, the student immediately had money. Lin Tian continued, saying that Teacher Sen had no choice. The student pointed his finger at one of the hostages, saying that the teacher was forced to hide money for this guy. The first rule of using the Kaienjai system, or the embezzlement system, was that money could appear at a location specified by the system user, and the amount was also determined by them. The robbers were outraged by what they heard, and the guy that Lin Tian pointed at trembled. The boss started shouting angrily and told his subordinates that they were always unscrupulous. And when it came to a big deal, they decided to grab more for themselves. Mouse said that they had never done anything wrong to the boss, but that the boss did not trust them. Mouse denied that they had betrayed their supervisor. The boss told him that if they didn't do anything, the money came out of thin air. To Lin Tian, the boss really looked like the boss. Pointing in his direction, Lin said that the boss was doing the wrong thing. It turned out that Lin was pointing at the money lying on the floor, which, according to the student, the boss himself put there. Addressing the boss, Mouse called him Lu Heaping and said that he wasn't clean either. Lu Heoping got angry at Mouse, called him an idiot, and told him to die because the boss' real name was declassified. A shot was fired. There was a shootout between the robbers. Some were killed, bullets flew in all directions, and Lin Tian tried to cover Teacher Sen. The gunfire stopped and the smoke began to clear. The robbers lay bleeding on the floor. It was all over, but Lin didn't use up all the money. There was still 100,000 yuan left. The student had 1 minute left. Lu Heoping leaned the gun against Lin Tian's head again. The surviving robber blamed the student for the incident and told him to die. Lin Tian stared at Lu Heoping hatefully, not knowing what to do. Lu Heoping viciously shouted at Lin Tian, claiming that he was the culprit behind the shootout between the robbers and wishing him dead. Fear and tension in Teacher Sen's eyes. She abruptly stepped between the robber and her student, wanting to protect them. The gun's trigger was pulled. Sen thought to herself that she was a good teacher and could take a bullet for her ward. Everyone was in shock. Even the boss himself was shocked. The teacher wondered why Lu Heoping was so surprised. I assumed it was because of her sense of justice, already resigned to her fate. Sen realized that she didn't feel the pain of the shot at all. She turned her gaze to the supposed injury. A large number of banknotes were placed in front of her chest. The bullet couldn't get through the wall of that money. The robber boss was trying to figure out what was going on, suspecting that this was also Lin Tian's doing. But he couldn't believe it. He exclaimed that it couldn't be, and was about to fire again. All of a sudden, his gun exploded in his hands, sending the bills flying. The robber was badly injured, bleeding profusely, including an explosion that grazed his eyes. Lin Tian stated that the gun explosion was karma. He was convinced that he had guessed correctly that it was possible to put money in a gun and make it explode. Teacher Sen asked Lin Tian to take his hand away from her. Confused, she said that his hand was on her chest. Lin pretended to be a fool, said that he was too surprised to notice, and apologized. But in fact, it was very pleasant for him. He reached for the money he'd created. They began to quickly disappear as soon as his hand touched them. Lin said that the system did not deceive him. Indeed, he cannot take money. The door slammed, and the police came running in. The officer asked what had happened here. Lin told Ant to deal with it herself, since she was an officer and he was late for work, and left. She watched him go. There were 200 yuan in his back pocket. This girl thought he stole them. She yelled at him to stop. The officer was indignant that he called her an ant, because she only recently graduated from college. There was a lesson being taught by Teacher Sen. Lin Tian was asleep. The teacher called out to the sleeping student, but received no response. A student with red hair who was playing with a pen called Lin a beggar and said that he was sleeping in class again. Lin Tian opened his eyes. His gaze fell on Teacher Sen's thighs as she continued to call out to the student. Then, Lin looked at her breasts. Teacher Sen told Lin Tian to concentrate on the lesson. Lin himself did not know how he fell asleep and made an excuse that yesterday he was too tired because of part-time work. Another student also called Lin Tian a beggar and said that he would be punished for contradicting his teacher. Teacher Sen thought back to yesterday and how Lin Tian had saved her and all the hostages from the robbers. The teacher forgave Lin, but only this time. Teacher Sen turned around and a torn piece formed on her tights. Lin Tian was stuck on this view. The other students couldn't believe that Lin Tian had gotten away with it. A student with red hair received a notification on his phone. It turned out to be news that said a mysterious university student had outsmarted the robbers during yesterday's bank robbery, rescued the hostages, and called the police. The photo in the news was of Lin Tian. The student couldn't believe his eyes that a beggar like Lin Tian could do such a thing. The bell rang. One of the students in a skirt was sitting on a desk. The other one, in shorts, was standing next to the desk, leaning her arms against it. 3 female students were sitting on Lin Tian's desk. The first female student with long flowing hair said that she heard that Lin was able to report the crime yesterday and rescue the hostages. And the second student with a ponytail said that everything was wrong. According to the version that the second student read, Lin Tian is a martial artist and defeated everyone alone. Turning to Lin, the first student asked him if she was right. After sticking to the girls' bodies, Lin told her that she was right. One of the students suggested that we celebrate. The 3 students approached the girls and Lin Tian. One of them had red hair, saying that Lin had become a big star and would have to treat everyone to dinner. The second student agreed with his words and said that there was no other way they could have consolidated Lin Tian's status as a big star. Turning away from the guys, the girl agreed with her hair down and agreed with the guys. But when she reached out to Lin Tian, he wasn't with them. While the kids were hoping for a free dinner, Lin sneaked out of the classroom quietly. carrying his plastic bag with him, saying how dare they ask him to spend money on them, and saying goodbye to the kids in Spanish. But Lin Tian stopped when he heard a certain notification. The red-haired guy once again called Lin a beggar and said that he had no ambition and just ran away. Turning to the other kids, the student asked them if they still considered Lin Tian a star. Suddenly, someone grabbed the red-haired student by the shoulder. He turned around. It was Lin Tian who had assigned a seat in the dining hall. Lin invited everyone to dinner in the dining room. The notification that Lin Tian received earlier was from the embezzlement system, which, for Lin Tian, he thought was at the right time. Lin Tian proudly invited all the kids to the cafeteria for dinner. One of the students, the one with the red hair, asked in bewilderment what our main character said. He was surprised that Lin Tian had chosen the dining room as the place for dinner. The other guys were laughing at Lin Tian, mocking him for being able to only eat in the cafeteria. Lin Tian still repeated with the same confidence that he was treating everyone and everyone was invited. He waved his hand, calling for everyone to head to the dining hall right now and call for all their siblings. Satisfied, the girls clung to Lin Tian, explaining that the canteen wasn't a bad option and that it also had some interesting dishes that were worth trying. With a frown, the student asked Lin Tian if he seriously thought that he would eat in the cafeteria, because such a place is not suitable for him. As Lin Tian was already leaving with the girls and turning his back on the man, he told him that he was just afraid of embarrassing himself. The three boys were left alone in the classroom. One of them said that he could go instead of Boss Zhang if he was afraid. It turned out to be the name of a student with red hair. Boss Zhang was very angry at such a phrase and was ready to kick him. He ordered the second student to tell everyone to gather outside the cafeteria today. The guy agreed, grinning. Boss Zhang was about to trample Lin Tian underfoot in front of everyone. People were approaching the student cafeteria. The guys were gossiping about Lin Tian, doubting if he was really going to treat the whole group. One of the people said that he heard that not the whole group will come, but the whole university. Another thought that this might be too much. And the recent news made Lin Tian believe in himself. Suddenly, a man pushed them roughly aside. He had a Zhang Hao restaurant badge on his chest. It was one of Boss Zhang's chefs. Standing between them, he said to everyone that he was in a good mood today and wanted to treat everyone to dinner. The restaurant was on wheels. It was brought to the dining room. A pleasant aroma wafted out from the kitchen. The chefs lined up in front of the restaurant and were ready to go. Boss Zhang Hao's friends helped encourage the crowd to eat at his 5-star restaurant. Because the chef himself came here, it was very difficult to compete with this. People were drooling, thinking it was definitely better than the cafeteria. One of Zhang Hao's acquaintances continued to talk about his boss's generosity. The other, meanwhile, called Lin Tian, a beggar who only pretends to be generous. Boss Zhang Hao thought that he had won and showed his disrespect for Lin Tian. Even up to this point, the girls who were most loyal to Lin Tian had asked him if they could go eat at the restaurant. They were starving and decided that there was no reason not to go there and get something to eat. But they promised to come back later to support Lin Tian. Lin Tian sighed, saying that it wasn't worth spending so much money in our time. The phone in Lin Tian's bag rang. He answered. He was informed that it took some time to prepare the food he requested. Lin Tian was glad that everything was ready, even if it was a little late. Zhang Hao looked at Lin Tian, who was talking on the phone. Suddenly, something distracted his attention. They were strange containers that flew out of the sky on parachutes. Parachutes with large containers flew from the sky, which surprised the students. There was also a uniformed girl with long yellow loose hair who was holding two men in chef's uniforms. She landed. The girl unhooked the straps from the parachute. One of the men adjusted his cap. The three of them stood majestically in front of the large container. It started to open. It contained a large number of products. The students were surprised by this and did not expect that there would be ingredients in the containers. They thought that Boss Zhang was worried that the guys might not eat enough, so he decided to play it safe by calling for more food. One of the students close to Zhang admired the parachutes. He told the boss that if he was up to something like this, he could have told him sooner rather than go through with it secretly. Boss Zhang didn't do anything like this and didn't know what to do. One student was already yelling at everyone else to hurry up and line up if they still wanted to try the best food in the world. The student also noted that Boss Zhang is being put down today. It occurred to Zhang that his younger brother, whom the student had praised and wanted to give a promotion, had helped him do this. He agreed with the guys and once again introduced himself to Zhang Hao, adding that he just likes to make everyone happy, and money or whatever is not a problem for him. Zhang Hao started to greet the girl who came down from the parachute. Without replying, she walked past him, slapping Zhang on the chin. The girl and the cooks approached Lin Tian. Lin called them guys and said that they were too slow. After all, he had warned them earlier that money wasn't a problem. If they hurried, Lin Tian would double the price. The girl apologized to Lin for waiting and introduced herself as Cecilia, the manager. Cecilia added that Lin Tian can simply be called Silly. Lin called the girl Xiao Lai, which meant junior, and ordered her to start cooking. Cicely was outraged by the nickname chosen by Lin Tian. Lin reminded Cecilia to prepare 2 bowls of rice for him and pour plain, cool drinking water into the bottle he handed to the manager. Lin Tian turned around. The atmosphere between him and Cicely was strange. The students started discussing that airdrop wasn't Boss Zhang. They assumed that Lin Tian was rich from the start and carefully concealed it. After all, to organize a plane for the delivery of cooks and ingredients, you need a lot of money. For the guys, Zhang Hao lost face. They wanted to go to the canteen and taste Lin Tian's food. Zhang Hao was angry with Lin. He believed that he dared to go against Zhang himself. He said that airdrop is nothing, and in cooking food, the cook is the most important thing. Zhang noted that his chefs are known all over the world. Zhang Hao even has one that cooks in the best 5-star restaurant in the country. He claimed that Lin Tian's chefs could hardly compare to his. At this time, one of Zhang's cooks turned to another, calling him master. On his knees, this chef asked him to teach him the latest tricks of the master because he boasted that he was able to make progress. The master was one of Lin Tian's chefs. He told Chef Zhang that he was a chef at a 5-star restaurant, one of the best chefs in the country, and was asking master for something. Zhang Hao shouted to remind his chef that he was his boss, and if he didn't get back to him quickly, Zhang would fire him. But the cook replied that if he could learn from this master, he wouldn't care if Zhang fired him. At this time, Lin Tian said that he was already hungry. His cook was already ready to go to work. It was worth waiting a bit. Zhang Hao was at a loss. He thought he was being joked at. After all, this whole divine turn of events was in the manga style. One of the guys Zhang Hao scolded called him a two-faced liar and thought that Lin Tian had given him something. Zhang said that he could see right through the guy and ordered him not to contact him again. The student asked the boss in confusion what had happened. Meanwhile, the girls were discussing cooking with Lin Tian, and they were waiting to see what the culinary savages that the female students called Lin's cooks could do. The manager and the chefs served Lin Tian the first ready salad. Lin was indignant because he only asked for a bowl of rice. Cecilia felt uneasy. While opening the dish, the manager politely asked Lin to taste the salad. The plate was beautifully served with liquid and cabbage. Zhang Hao scoffed at the prepared food because the salad served looked like nothing more than a torn-off cabbage leaf to him. One of the female students leaned against Lin Tian and said sheepishly that the salad was great. Lin did not argue and said that the cabbage was delicious, but the girl's review in Lin's opinion was exaggerated. Cicely asked Lin Tian to take a close look at this simple cabbage. The manager started talking about her. This cabbage-shaped appetizer salad is actually made from truffles using molecular cooking technology. The dark part of the cabbage is a different type of black truffle, while the light part is a more expensive white truffle. The leaves and stems of the cabbage were made using snow clam paste. Each piece of cabbage can be eaten in one bite, and each bite costs more than 30,000. After trying it out, Lin Tian agreed with his superiority. According to him, the salad was slightly tastier and better than in the dining room. Everyone looked at Lin in disbelief as he compared this excellence to a regular salad from the cafeteria. Cecilia served the rest of the dishes. The students started praising them. The dishes were made to look like those in the dining room, but they don't taste comparable. Each bite was worth a lot of money to the boys. The students thought that Lin Tian was so used to delicacies that he preferred the canteen. Among the dishes prepared by Lin Tian chefs were free soup in the dining room without oil, with boiled water and cabbage, rare white asparagus with an endangered species of pork, mangalitsa, and also pork with a fishy taste and almost no meat, seasoned with saffron, scrambled eggs with tomatoes and rice, from special tomatoes glazed with honey, and spherical fish meat. The guys thought that these dishes were better than the dishes of Zhang Hao's chefs. They thought that Zhang Hao's boss title was just an illusion. To the students, Zhang was no longer as good as Lin Tian. They called young master Lin Tian a dark horse. Meanwhile, to Zhang Hao, all of this seemed impossible. He couldn't believe that Lin Tian was really a millionaire, and he was afraid that he would lose to him. Cecilia asked her master if he was satisfied with the meal. Lin Tian belched and replied that he liked the food, but was not satisfied with the fact that the water he was given was too cold. Cecilia replied that it was the spring water of the snowy mountain and stopped talking because she put her master's happiness above everything else. Cecilia handed Lin Tian the wallet, saying that she had to return the remaining money to him. Lin slammed his hand down on the table and shouted at her about the refund. The student told the manager that he did not need a refund. He told her to buy herself handbags, cosmetics, and all the most expensive things. One of the students reacted to Lin Tian's action by saying that he was being brave, and one of the female students was confused as to why she felt that Lin was getting prettier and prettier. An incompletely satisfied Lin Tian was glad that the task was completed, but he wanted his stomach to be bigger so that it could hold more food. A system of wasting money appeared in front of Lin Tian, where it was written that the task was completed, and the reward for completing the task was chosen by the host. It was a kind of lottery with random organ upgrades. It started to start, and Lin closed his eyes and did not understand what kind of lottery it was, because he did not choose anything himself. He asked that it was not an improvement of the appendix, as it is useless. The lottery launch arrow stopped. Lin Tian opened his eyes. In the reflection of his gaze was Cicely, clad only in her underwear. It turned out that all the other students were in this guise. The lottery, which Lin called an IX-ray, appealed to the student. He noted that the system of embezzlement of money treated him well. The manager and the female students were worried about Lin Tian's appearance. Cicely called out to him. She asked what was wrong with him, and the joyous Lin, who was bleeding from the nose, did not regret his life at all. After the incident in the cafeteria and the exam, Lin Tian became famous throughout the university. The officer came to the school where Lin studied. Even though the robbery case was closed, she felt that something was wrong, so she felt that she should meet Lin Tian in person. The officer's attention was drawn to students with plastic bags. She asked them to wait. One of the students first called the officer Anne, then, by position, and asked if something had happened. The confused officer was indignant at the nickname, and asked if she really looked like an old woman. The girl introduced herself. Her name was Zhu Weiwei. She asked me to call her at least my sister. The student smiled. Zhu Weiwei pointed at the plastic bags. She said she had seen them before and asked if they were common at their university. The guy said that everything is very simple. Now, wearing plastic bags for students has become fashionable. Another guy called the officer sis and said that Master Lin started this fashion, and they still remember that wonderful dinner the other day. The officer was pondering Master Lin's nickname. She suggested that it might have been a hoax by a rich kid. Something suddenly dawned on her. She indignantly asked the second student to stop, asking what he called her. Sis caught the officer off guard. Zhu Weiwei noticed Lin Tian with a few female students. She was surprised that she had met him so quickly. At this time, Lin was looking at the system with a blank expression. The robbery, dinner, and exam were 3 tasks, after which the system suddenly informed Lin Tian that the training was complete, and he goes to the task selection screen. One of the students asked Lin why he was ignoring her. She wanted to have another taste of the food that was at dinner. Lin Tian still understood the new features of the system. He didn't like that there was a penalty for not completing a task. The higher the difficulty, the harsher the punishment. Another student hugged Lin and told him that she would be alone in the dorm room tonight. Zhu Weiwei imagined Lin Tian differently. Lin's appearance belied his actions and title as a master. It was in ordinary slates. He was wearing ordinary trousers and carrying a plastic bag. The collar of Lin Tian's t-shirt was torn. As Zhu Weiwei reasoned, according to the investigation, Lin was poor. The student works and goes to school at the same time. The officer considered the turn of events. It was clear to her that Lin Tian had suddenly become rich after being robbed. Zhu Weiwei believed that the student was involved. She turned around and told Lin to stand. In front of Lin Tian, the system gave him a choice of the difficulty of the task from easy to difficult. Lin wanted to choose to start with an easy task, since the student believed that he still had nothing to lose. An officer was approaching the student, grabbing Lin Tian's shoulder. Zhu Weiwei told him that she needed to talk to him. The officer interfered with Lin's choice of task difficulty. The student chose the most difficult level of the task. A drooping Lin thought it was over. In front of Lin Tian was the system, and behind it was the officer's chest. Zhu Weiwei agreed with Lin. It's over for him. She asked the student to remove his paw from her. Lin Tian was surprised by the officer's appearance, as he was very passionate about the system. Lin ran. He apologized to Zhu Weiwei and said that time was running out. The officer shouted at Lin Tian to stand still. Tasks of the system of a difficult level were to purchase a car worth more than 2 million and take part in the race. Task completion time is 6 hours. The reward for completing the task successfully was an extended wheel of fortune, and the penalty for non-compliance is the loss of language skills. Lin Tian was worried about the severity of the punishment. Without language skills, it would be very difficult for him to live. He looked at his Peppa Pig watch. It was currently 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which meant that he needed to complete all the tasks before 8 o'clock. With the certainty that this amount of time was more than enough for him, Lin Tian ran to spend the money. His intentions were interrupted by the feeling that he was in flight, but he didn't understand why it took off. It was Yu Weiwei. She was very strong and threw his arm over her. She told him not to try to escape. Lin Tian was horrified. His hand was right between this girl's breasts. She stumbled, lost her balance. Her expression was confused. It was probably because of where Lin Tian's hand ended up. They fell to the ground together. Lin Tian was in pain. His hand was cuffed. The officer arrested Lin Tian for disorderly conduct, assaulting a police officer, and disorderly conduct. Lin Tian couldn't say a word. They arrived at the police station. Lin Tian and Zhu Weiwei stared intently into each other's eyes. The officer jumped up and was furious that she thought Lin Tian wasn't telling her the truth. Lin Tian continued to make excuses that it was just a misunderstanding. Standing behind the bright lamp, the officer said that she could spend the whole day with Lin Tian in the interrogation room as long as he lasted. Lin Tian referred to her as Sister Zhu and said that he would lose the ability to speak if she didn't let him go. Someone called Zhu Weiwei. On the phone, she was told to let Lin Tian go. He was released on bail with the help of his lawyer. The lawyer was ready to answer all the questions for him. Lin Tian ran away, telling them to deal with it without him, as he had business to attend to. He ran to the car dealership and stood outside its doors. It was already 6 o'clock, and the car dealership was closed. Lin Tian thought that this was the end. But after a while, he calmed down and thought as he crossed the road where he could find a car for 2 million. The bus passed right in front of him. The bus driver was shouting at an inattentive pedestrian, Lin Tian, because he was almost hit. This situation gave Lin Tian an idea. He thanked the driver. The driver, of course, did not understand why he was thanked, because he had just almost hit a man and then shouted at him. Lin Tian decided to buy a bus because it costs 2 million. It was a hybrid bus with a huge space, an engine with a lot of horsepower, automatic air conditioning with a constant temperature, leather seats, mirrors that rotate 180 degrees. All this is definitely worth the money spent. Lin Tian was glad that he had completed half of the task, and his language skills would be preserved. Slamming the bus, Lin said that from now on, he would have his own bus. No more public transportation. The system notified Lin that the first part of the task was completed. He was pleased, but as soon as he saw the goal of the second part of the task, Lin drooped. After all, the rest of the task was to win a drift race on the purchased car. The race started at 12 o'clock. Lin Tian realized that on a purchased bus, a drift race was unrealistic. Besides, Lin couldn't drive. Suddenly, Cicely came over and said she could drive. Lin Tian beamed at her words. He knelt in front of Cecilia and put his arm around her hips, telling her that he was glad to see her and that he would definitely give her a promotion. Cecilia felt uneasy. She told Lin Tian not to take the opportunity to hug her. Lin started to get on the bus. He looked serious. The student ordered Xiao Lai to stop talking and hurry on the trip because it was already late. There were racing cars and their drivers on the track. One of them said that only yesterday he converted the car, and now it is with nitrogen acceleration, so he thought that today the victory is for him. As it turned out, Zhang Hao was also a participant in the race. He told his opponent that his clunker didn't even deserve Zhang's exhaust gases. One of the competitors saw Zhang Hao and said that he heard that the other day he invited people to dinner and they didn't eat. Zhang Hao viciously grabbed that guy. Suddenly, a girl in a suit told everyone to shut up. It was the goddess of racing, legendary racing driver Luo Jiaxin, who drives a pure white snowstorm racing car. Luo Jiaxin started to get into her snow-white car, telling everyone to stop talking nonsense and start the race. Zhang Hao recalled how legend had it that whoever won would be able to remove Luo Jiaxin's mask and see her face. The student was sure that today he would be the one to do it. Zhang Hao asked if everyone was still there and suggested that the race start. Suddenly, a light appeared. This light blinded Zhang Hao's eyes, and he covered them with his hands. Lin Tian looked out of the window of the bus as it arrived. He greeted the participants of the race and said that he would also take part. Among all the racing cars, there was one Lin bus. For the first time in her life, Cicely felt ashamed that she had come to the race by bus. Zhang Hao was angry that he had met Lin Tian again. The bus stopped. Lin leaned against the open window. Luo Jiaxin caught his eye. Lin Tian wanted to look at her with X-ray eyes since she was wearing a mask. He recognized the girl. It was an excellent student from his university, Suzuki. Suzuking is extremely popular in the university. She is a goddess to all the guys here. Some of its advantages: a good family, good looks, a good figure, especially breasts. She's an excellent student. Suzuking is also a master of sports and tennis. And like the icing on the cake, her sweet, sweet smile holds a special place in every guy's heart. Lin Tian found it hard to believe that such a girl was racing. He looks at her in disbelief. Suzuking or Luo Jiashan told him not to stare at her and called her an idiot. Lin Tian silently turned away from her. He didn't think that the goddess could be so arrogant, although it is common for goddesses to do this. The cars were ready to start, and the countdown began. Everyone jumped forward abruptly, and the race began. Lin Tian's bus was behind Zhang Hao's car. Zhang Hao said that Lin Tian went crazy while racing on the bus. Lin Tian laughed back at him. Zhang Hao was sure that he would definitely trample on his opponent this time. Lin Tian's bus was parked next to Luo Jiashan's snowstorm racing car. He asked the beautiful woman, as he put it, why she was standing. She explained that she had a contract with the judge, according to which she gives the rest of the race a 5-minute head start. Otherwise, it will look like a mockery of them. She would have won too easily. Other people didn't stand a chance. Lin Tian said that in that case, he would wait for her. Luo Jiashan was surprised that Lin Tian didn't mind paying $500,000 for the entrance fee, because at this rate, he would lose it just like that. He told her that it was only $500,000 and that the main thing was to be patient and calm. In fact, he knew that the system gave him money and that he couldn't spend it anywhere else. He was looking at his fancy watch. Lin Tian continued his speech to Luo Jiashan, saying that it didn't seem like the contribution money was wasted. It was still unknown who would lose and who would win the race. She asked if he really hoped to win on the bus without modifications, because it is impossible. Lin Tian, as usual, was very confident and said that he had a plan. He wasn't going to lose so easily. Luo Jiashan thought about Lin Tian, what everyone was saying about him at the university, saying that she would like to see him win. She slammed on the gas pedal and sped off. Lin Tian urged Cicely to follow the plan. He took the phone out of the bag, saying that this is the first and most important step. The phone at the police station rang. The call was answered. Lin Tian was glad that his brilliant plan would work. He took a deep breath, and he turned the race participants into the police, saying that they had gathered on Mount Luo Jiashan. Zhang Hao's racing car drifted. There was no one to be seen in the mirror. Zhang was glad that Lin Tian was left behind somewhere. He wanted to kick Lin's ass when he won the race. Something braked the car. Zhang Hao stopped in shock. There were thorns in the way. Zhang was angry that someone had set him up. Called police officers shone the light on the road and examined the racetrack. Zhu Weiwei was with them. She told Zhang Hao that she would arrest the riders for endangering public order, illegal car modification, and illegal gambling. The officer tied Zhang's hands with a rope. She didn't know who the citizen who called the police was, but she should definitely thank him if she met him in the future. It was Lin Tian's bus. Cicely asked her master if there was another way. Lin said he called the police to block the shortcut. The rest of the riders will have to go a long way, so Lin and Cicely have a chance to win. The girl asked what Lin meant by that. She assumed he was talking about storming the post. The student yawned. He said that when the time came, Cicely would understand. By this time, Zhu Weiwei had tied up the other riders. Lin Tian's bus began to approach the officer. He drove so close to her that he brushed against her. Zhu Weiwei's officer's skirt was torn at the back. The girl covered her butt with her hands in embarrassment and turned around to ask who it was. Lin recognized the officer and called her aunt again. Zhu Weiwei indignantly asked the student if he was also here to participate in the race. Lin Tian looked surprised and replied to the officer that who in their right mind would participate in the bus race. He asked Zhu Weiwei if she was overtired by accident. Lin showed the girl the number card, adding that he was just taking the last bus home, and politely asked Zhu Weiwei to clear the road. The officer agreed that you can't take part in the race on the bus. Lin's bus left. Zhu Weiwei realized that there were no buses running on Mount Luo Jiashan. She added that Lin Chan would pay for her uniform. Cicely said they were in the lead and had half a track left. Several racing cars with the bus continued to drive. Luo Jiashan was surprised that Lin Tian was the first. She assumed he'd called the police. After passing Lin, the girl praised the guy's progress, but was sure that she could not beat her on the city track. Cicely decided to tell her master about the situation. At this time, Lin Tian was talking on the phone. He told the other person to do what he said before. Lin added that money is not a problem. The student ordered to act now, and the stronger, the better. The riders continued their race, with Luo Jiashan leading the way in her snowstorm. One of the race participants didn't know what kind of idiot called the police, but he still knew what to do. He was prepared to apply the newly modified nitrogen boost, with which he would definitely be able to defeat Luo Jaishin. The button that triggers nitrogen acceleration has been pressed. Nitrogen came out of the exhaust pipes. The blue car of this racer quickly overtook everyone, even the snowstorm. But then he was blinded by an unknown bright source of light. Like the sun above his head, one car skidded and slid to the side. The same thing happened with almost all the other cars. Lin Tian pretended to be an alien until he could be seen due to the blinding light, and he asked the Earthlings to let him examine their bodies. The racer believed that they were aliens. He was very scared and begged for mercy, because he is still young. The others were also horrified. They knelt down and prayed to the newcomers. It turned out that they were standing in front of Lin Tian's bus. Happy Lin Tian said that he was an alien, but just a rich guy. The light was created by powerful spotlights from the roofs of houses, which, apparently, were installed at his request. He told Cicely that she had overtaken the frightened riders. She lit a cigarette. The rider was stunned. He was so close to winning and fell for Lin Tian's trick. The others were also discouraged. They fell to the ground, already realizing their defeat. Lin Tian waved at them, wishing them a rest like the rabbit in the parable of the tortoise and the hare. He praised Xiao Lai for his excellent work. She studied under Detective Qi Dongzi. Of course she's a professional. The bus left the losers behind, but the snowstorm continued to race. Luo Jaishin didn't fall for all this. She put on her black glasses and admitted that Lin Tian really had a couple of aces up his sleeve. She had to accelerate. She turned on nitrogen acceleration. Her car's spoiler came out. The car was ready to go at full speed. The goddess of racing stepped on the gas. There were even sparks coming from the contact of the wheels with the asphalt. Luo Jaishin isn't going to let Lin Tian win. Lin turned on the phone and asked Cecilia if they still had any debts to go to. Because of the bad signal, Lin Tian might have missed the broadcast. Cicely replied that there were still 3 kilometers left. Lin said that it is difficult to be the best, and there is hardly a worthy opponent. There was a commotion. Luo Jaishin's white racing car drove high above the bus. The car landed next to Lin Tian's bus. Luo Jaishin and Lin Tian's eyes met. The girl put her hand to her throat. The student was surprised that Luo Jaishin could catch up to Lin so quickly under such circumstances. She was truly a goddess to him. The girl passed Lin Tian. Cicely asked her master what they should do. Since this wasn't in Lin's plans, he thought that the end had come.
Lin Tian turned to Cicely and asked her to throw the radio at Luo Jaishin's car.
Smiling, Cicely asked her master to just watch. The girl tore off the shreds of her clothes. Cecilia tied them around the radio. Leaning out of the window, the girl began to spin the radio. Cicely made a throw. She aimed at Luo Jaishin's car. The rider was surprised that the radio flew to her in the front seat. Calling her a beauty, Lin asked her if she was still tired. He suggested that she stop and rest. Luo Jaishin sharply told Lin Tian not to play games with her. She called him a loser and said he only deserved to lick her feet. After imagining what the girl had said, Lin replied that they would be able to do it, but not before he won. After viciously calling Lin Tian a pervert, Luo Jaishin insisted that he couldn't win today. Lin asked if the girl was confident that she could beat him. He called her the queen of racing. Lin Tian suddenly called the girl by her real name, Suzuki. The excited girl asked the guy how he knew. Because she was wearing a mask. Besides knowing what Suzuki looked like under the mask, Lin also knew the color of her underwear. But the guy did not tell the girl about this. Lin Tian said that it was fine to keep her secrets, but she should show a little goodwill. The girl replied, "How can Lin not be ashamed?" After slowing down, Suzuki told the student to go ahead, and that the victory was his. Lin's bus was the first to arrive at the finish line. Lin Tian was happily declared the winner. Suzuki thought that if the guy told anyone about her identity, she would kill him. Lin Tian wanted to leave already, as the broadcast was about to start. On his phone, a certain goddess Faye started broadcasting. She was cute. Faye offered to start the dance, and reminded the gentleman to reward her. All the commentators liked Faye, her great dance and cool figure. Confused, Lin Tian also considered the girl's figure to be a canon. Lin wondered who was hiding behind the beautiful Faye's mask. Our hero's mouth watered just looking at Tian Feifei. She had about 200 viewers, and the commentators' opinions about her were different. Her cat suddenly decided to attack the streamer. Faye wasn't expecting this. She was scared. She fell to the floor. Her thigh was scratched, and there was a bruise on the shin. Because of the fall, Tian Feifei disappeared from the frame. The audience reacted sharply negatively to this. There were a lot of unpleasant comments. They said that she had nothing to look at. She did not show anything interesting, and they decided to leave her broadcast to another streamer, Gamami, who began to undress. Tian Feifei was apologizing to the guys, admitting that she made a mistake today. Lin Tian was furious at this time, calling out names to the bad commenters and saying that they didn't know anything about his goddess. Frustrated, Tian Feifei got up and continued broadcasting, but she only had 26 viewers left, about 10 times less than she had before. Then she accidentally bumped her forehead on the microphone, and there were even fewer viewers, only 7. The cat kept going crazy and yelling at Fei. 4 viewers left. Lin Tian cried as he thought about how nice it would be if he had the money to make a gift list and his goddess Feifei was in the tops. Lin Tian's finger shone. The glow grew even brighter. The streaming platform suddenly announced the news that Tian Feifei received the title of Queen of Broadcasts. Everyone was called to its broadcast to snatch a red envelope on money order as a gift in the WeChat program. Lin Tian was envious of a man with such good taste and so much money who had given his goddess the title of Broadcast Queen. Tian Feifei was shocked. She had a full 2 million viewers on the broadcast. Flushed, she thanked the man under the pseudonym Tianchen Lin for this title. Lin Tian realized that this was his alias. He received a notification in the news feed. In the notification, the user Tianchen Lin was congratulated for becoming a crowned noble in the Tian Feifei broadcast room. His gift bag was sent, and he was encouraged to continue supporting his favorite streamer. In the top gifts of the day, Tianchen Lin was, of course, in the first place. Lin Tian said that this handsome multi-billionaire with good taste was himself. He remembered that he hadn't looked at the award for winning the race yet. The reward was a gift generator. The system listed the name of the award as Golden Finger. You could only use it once to spend an unlimited amount of currency on any site. Lin Tian felt that he was losing a lot, because it was an unlimited amount of currency. The next morning came. Actions are transferred to the university. Lin Tian was yawning from his recent awakening. Something abruptly caught his attention. He saw the band-aid on the girl's thigh. He began to guess that this was the goddess Tian Feifei, because the broadcast showed a scratch on her leg in the same place. Lin Tian glanced at the girl once more. It was the beautiful Su Zuking, her back to him. She turned and smiled. Lin sighed and shook his head. He said it was a waste of time. In his opinion, Su Zuking didn't fit the role of Fei, either by her height or her face. Su Zuking greeted Lin Tian happily and said that she had been waiting for him. Lin asked her why she had called him, since they didn't know each other that well. The student looked confused and asked how he was able to do this. In her mind, she called Lin Tian a little shit, and because he threatened her last night, she was ready to kill him. Lin Tian was attracted by the light among the students. Lin pointed to the source of the light and asked where it was coming from. It turned out that the light was coming from a bald head. Others gathered around the student, pointing and taunting him. This student was Zhang Hao. When Zhang saw Lin Tian, he became angry. He thought that he was unlucky, because he began to meet Lin wherever he went. Zhang Hao had a thought that he hadn't thought of before, that the one who called the police during the race was Lin Tian. After shouting, Zhang confirmed that Lin had called the police yesterday. Lin Tian thought Zhang was crazy. He said that he was with Su Zuking all last night. Addressing the student, Lin asked if that was the case, calling her Flower Su. The words made everyone surprised, including Su Zuking herself. The students were waiting for her answer. The girl was indignant. She nodded her head, but she still wanted to kill Lin. Everyone was shocked by the girl's agreement. The guys started discussing the shocking news that the famous Su flower now has a master, and it's Master Lin. They thought he was a terrible and truly young master. The vicious Su Zuking still wanted to take revenge on Lin Tian. Teacher Chen told everyone to take their seats as class was starting. She stood on tiptoe. The teacher began to voice the topic of today's lesson. Lin Tian felt like he was struck by lightning. Teacher Sen's untidy uniform caught his attention. Then, her torn tights. They were also battered. Lin Tian used his fingers to pick out the angle. The teacher noticed the student's actions. Lin Tian realized that Teacher Chen and Fei were duplicates. With a cry, the teacher remonstrated with Lin Tian and asked him what was wrong with him. For a joyous surprise, the realization that his unreachable goddess Feifei was standing right in front of his eyes was a surprise. He couldn't believe that Teacher Chen could be his favorite cute goddess. Lin Tian was distracted from his thoughts. A system with a hellish task mode appeared in front of him. Lin Tian's task from the system was to collect 3 of the best streamers on the internet within 1 week. The reward was distorted, written in unreadable characters. Lin Tian also didn't understand what exactly collect meant. Without thinking about the reward, Lin Tian decided to complete the task first. He thought that although there was a high probability that Teacher Chen was Tian Feifei, it was better to confirm it with X-ray eyes. He tried to justify to himself that he wasn't doing this for fun, but for the sake of the task. But he was already bleeding from the nose. He knew that Tian Feifei had a mole on her thigh, so the teacher must have one too. When he looked at it, it wasn't quite what he'd expected. He saw her underwear, but there was no mole because the teacher was wearing leggings. Lin Tian was disappointed that the X-ray eyes were only able to see through one layer, which was unfair. Teacher Chen asked what Lin Tian was looking at so intently. At the same time, he was staring at her thighs. As soon as he was noticed, he turned on Fool. The teacher got a call. She got excited and told them to do some self-study today, and after the lesson, she would answer the questions. Teacher Chen turned around, putting her phone to her ear. Soon I started running all together. Lin Tian stared at her. He saw the similarity between his cute goddess Feifei and Teacher Chen because he remembered Feifei crying once when she was insulted by the audience, just like Teacher Chen did now. Lin Tian moved in behind her. He didn't care about the mission or the money anymore, as long as he didn't let anyone make his goddess cry. In a hurry, the teacher would get on a scooter. Someone was watching her go. This man was telling someone on the phone that she was on her way and needed to remember to push her again. He couldn't believe she was still holding on. At the back was Lin Tian. He thought the man was trying to hit on his goddess. Teacher Chen arrived at the hospital. She promised the doctor that she would find a way to get the money and asked him to help her father with the operation. The doctor replied that he and his colleagues had already allocated money for her father's previous operation, but this time they couldn't do anything. Chen was crying. A text message came to her phone telling her to have dinner with Mr. Zhu for $500,000 and quickly. She needed the $500,000. She came out of the hospital. One of the men who met her said that it was time to deal with this. Otherwise, who knows what will happen to her father. The other one laughed at how much patience she had and how stubborn she was. He also mentioned a certain contract that he signed with her. He touched her tear-stained face and said he was sorry she was so beautiful. A powerful punch was delivered to his face. The man fell to the ground. Teacher Chen looked at her rescuer. Of course, it was Lin Tian, who started insulting his enemies in his usual way. Lin Tian took his goddess hand. He told them that she was his girlfriend. Teacher Chen said Lin Tian's name in embarrassment. The fat man said it didn't matter whose woman she was, because she had a contract with their company. Teacher Chen's careless reading of the contract terms was a problem for her that no one else cared about. The man started talking about the fine for violating the contract. He was interrupted by a slap on the cheek from Lin Tian. Lin blew on his hand and told the man that if he couldn't talk, then don't talk. The first man who had been beaten began to get up heavily. 2 of his teeth fell out. Enraged, he took out a blade and told the second one to kill Lin Tian for him. The second man pulled out a knife. It didn't matter to them how strong Lin Tian's fist was, because it couldn't be stronger than a knife. The student began to explain to them, pointing out that he was misunderstood, and if they looked back, everything would become clear. Both men spun around, thinking of an ambush, but there was no one behind them. When they turned back, at this time, Lin Tian was already running with Teacher Chen, holding her in his arms. They were angry that Lin had dared to deceive them. The student reached the bus. Lin managed to get inside the transport. The 2 of them came after him and wanted to catch Lin Tian and the teacher. At this time, Lin was sitting in one of the passenger seats and was completely calm. The student told the men that they didn't know whose bus they were getting on. One of them said that Lin Tian had already fooled them once, and it wouldn't work a second time, because the bus couldn't belong to a student. Suddenly, someone appeared and began to lift his leg, holding on to the railing of the bus. This was Cicely. She kicked one of the men in the face with her knee. Before the second one, the girl also started lifting her leg. It hit the second man's pants. Cicely threw both of them out of the bus. She shook her hands contentedly. Lin Tian ordered the gas to be turned on and shouted to the battered ones that this bus was his. They passed the men lying down. Teacher Chen called Lin's name in embarrassment. The student asked her what was going on. She asked Lin Tian to let her go. Lin said with a smile that he had forgotten about it and dismissed the teacher. The guy confirmed his words, saying that it was true. The drooping Teacher Chen told the student that he had better let her out. Recalling how she signed the contract, the teacher said that she could not afford to pay a fine for violating the contract and would apologize to those with whom she signed the contract. But Lin said he wouldn't let her out. The student said not to worry, because Teacher Chen was now his person. The system tasks showed that one of the top 3 internet streamers was collected. One of the top 3 internet streamers has been collected, and there are still 2 left. Lin Tian realized that the task of collecting the best streamers can be done separately. Teacher Chen told Lin Tian that he was talking nonsense, because she wasn't becoming his person. Satisfied, he leaned his head against her chest, telling her that not now, but soon she would be his man. The teacher was embarrassed. She reminded him that she was his teacher. Lin Tian said that her stop is here. He dropped her off and said goodbye. She thought that she really liked Lin Tian, but the fact that they were a teacher and a student bothered her. The bus arrived at some industrial area. They stopped. Lin Tian asked Cecilia if they had arrived yet. She said yes, and asked if she needed to call more people. Lin Tian asked if everything was ready. Cicely said everything was ready. He got off the bus with a briefcase in his hand. It must have had a gun in it. With him, he was no longer afraid. He passed unfriendly-looking men in the hangar. They asked him rude questions, which he ignored. Lin Tian entered the building. In front of him was a chair with its back turned. Cigar smoke was coming from behind the chair. Lin Tian told the person sitting there not to pretend to be someone important. He needed to finish up here quickly so that he wouldn't be late for the live broadcast. The man in the chair turned. He asked if Lin Tian was the one who kidnapped his company's actress, Tian Feifei. Kidnapping is a crime, so the conversation was not going to be easy. The boss of the company was very angry. Lin Tian calmly agreed that it was him. The boss shouted that Lin Tian was lying about not abducting her. They both looked at each other stupidly due to the awkwardness of the situation. Lin Tian admitted the charges, and this was not the right scenario for his opponent. He did not expect this. Lin Tian was pulling something out from under his windbreaker. The boss's entourage tensed, and someone shouted that he had a gun. In fact, Lin Tian took out a key in the style of his favorite Peppa Pig. Everyone couldn't believe what they were seeing. It was absurd. Lin Tian used the key to open his briefcase. The lid was opening, revealing the butt of a pistol. Everyone realized that this time it was really a gun. One of the boss's defenders was punched in the face. It was the incomparable Cicely that dealt with weaklings easily. Lin Tian ran closer to the boss. Lin Tian shouted out that it was worth seeing how much he was worth if he wanted to get his girlfriend. The boss was right in his sights. Lin Tian pulled the trigger of his gun. Lin Tian shouted to accept his challenge. The company's employees were worried about their boss. The boss asked why the student was more reckless than him. Lin Tian pulled the trigger. The boss closed his eyes in fright and put his hands to his face. But because nothing was happening, he opened his eyes. The boss thought that he was already in heaven, because all the money was flying around. It turned out that Lin Tian's gun wasn't shooting bullets, but a large amount of money. The money continued to flow out of the gun. Lin Tian ordered the boss to stop daydreaming and said that he was his god. Each bullet was a payment for Tian Feifei's contract. After showing a picture of Teacher Chen, Lin said that from now on, she no longer belongs to his company. The boss said, "But." Lin dropped the gun and told me not to say, "But." Lin Tian reached into his suitcase and said that the "but" was just proof that this money wasn't enough. The student pulled out 2 more pistols and told the boss that if 1 clip wasn't enough, he would give them more. Lin threw a bunch of bills at the boss. He dropped those guns and asked that it wasn't enough for the boss. Lin took 3 more guns, calling it a triple money storm. The staff considered young Master Lin to be a truly merciless person and too generous. The student took out a contract with Teacher Chen. As Lin Tian walked away from everyone, he said that Tian Feifei was his girlfriend and they should remember this once and for all. Sitting on the bus, Cecilia knew that it was none of her business, but she asked Lin Tian if it was worth spending so much money on her teacher. After breaking the contract, Lin replied that it was worth it. Lin added that he didn't need to give money to someone who bullied Teacher Chen. The boss let out a cry of indignation. The bills turned out to be fake. One of the employees found 3 real bills and showed them to the boss. He collected 250 yuan, then the same amount. But the boss hit him, saying how dare he give him this trash. Suddenly, someone put a gun to the back of the boss's head and said that this time it was real. The man turned around. The boss bowed down to a certain Lady Calzong and asked for her forgiveness. The girl stepped on his face with her shoe. She said if he wanted to apologize to her, he'd better die. The scene is set in the teacher's office. Teacher Chen was opening a box. She didn't know what it was, because she hadn't ordered anything lately. There were torn pieces of paper inside. Teacher Chen was surprised. It was her contract, and it was torn up, which means it's no longer valid. In addition to the scraps, there was also a letter inside. Teacher Chen took it. The letter says that this is a contract from the Tianchen Lin Talent Search Agency. She remembered this alias, Tianchen Lin. A few days ago, it gave her the status of broadcast queen. At this time, she was observed through binoculars through the window. The spy was Cicely, standing on a tree branch with Lin Tian sitting under her. He asked Cecilia if Teacher Chen had signed the letter he sent her. She nimbly jumped down from the tree. Cecilia said that, of course, Teacher Chen couldn't refuse such a generous offer, because her father urgently needed money for the operation. Lin Tian said that the previous wave of gifts had attracted a lot of attention to Tian Feifei, and her popularity was also steadily growing. It was clear from Lin Tian's reasoning that there was no problem with Teacher Chen, but he couldn't provide gifts for the 3 streamers needed to complete the task. The system said that with the help of money, he can only sign a contract with the top 2 streamers. In the first place in the most popular streaming service was Cao Bailo. Lin Tian should get the #1 streamer first. Cao Bailo's broadcast had 14 million viewers and high chat activity. Mostly people wrote about her age and her lack of breasts. Lin Tian was getting on his fancy bus. He said that he was going to go negotiate with her, ready to conclude a contract for any amount. Cao Bailo gladly agreed to sign it. It was so easy. Lin Tian was surprised by Cao Bailo's behavior. He thought that she would bargain, because she is the #1 streamer. She should know her own price. She clung to Lin Tian's hand, saying that when she saw her younger brother, she thought he was a good person and wouldn't lie to her. Confused, Lin Tian said that the little girl had a great future. In his mind, Lin Tian was already enjoying his victory, which was just around the corner. Cao Bailo, on the other hand, was actually very cunning and devious. She thought that Lin Tian was leading the wolf to her home and that it would soon be in her hands. She made a toast to her younger brother while holding a glass of wine. Lin Tian was drinking his wine, intending to get completely drunk. Cao Bailo nodded to her assistant from behind to start acting. This man was serious. He was approaching Lin Tian's bus. Cecilia had noticed it, and she couldn't have missed it. He was inside the bus, pulling something out from under his coat. A needle flew into his neck. It was Cicely who fired. She said that she could see right through this man, and if he wanted to frame young master, he would have to go through her first. The man seemed to be feeling quite normal. Cecilia wondered why the laxative didn't work on him. The man was unbuttoning his shirt, saying that he was immune to laxatives. He was going to show me who he was. Cecilia was confronted by a naked, muscular, scarred old man. He took off his shirt and introduced himself as a Maori. Maori said he would show Cicely his unique Chinese martial arts. Cicely prepared for an attack. She aimed at the old man, but he dodged her. Cicely noticed that the Maori had a lithe body and asked him what kind of movements he used. Grandfather grabbed the girl's wrist. The Maori scrolled through Cicely with his hands and told her that the movement was a square dance. The girl felt dizzy. Clenching her fist, Cecilia called the old man's move insidious. I decided to use all my strength to win. She repeatedly attacked the opponent with her fists, but he kept dodging, and more than one of Cecilia's blows missed the old man. He told the girl that she wouldn't be able to keep up with his dynamic rhythm. Suddenly, the Maori slapped Cicely's neck. With this technique, he put the girl to sleep and took a picture with her with a sweet smile. Meanwhile, Lin Tian was drinking with Cao Bailo. Lin was drunk. For Cao Billy, Lin Tian's fortune was a success. Under the table, the girl was holding on to her clothes with a small bag tied to them. Lin, who had been drinking, fell asleep. Standing with one foot on the table, Cao Bailo taunted the student and how confident he was of signing Cao Bailo's contract with him. The streamer planned to break the contract with Lin Tian as soon as he got drunk and throw the student on the bus, which will be planted evidence. Cao Bailo laughed out loud, because her plan was for Lin to stay in jail and drink with his cellmates. Suddenly, Lin Tian's voice rang out. It turned out that he doesn't like to drink. The student was completely sober. Cao Bailo was shocked. Lin was embarrassed to say that as soon as he entered the door, he looked at Cao Bailo with his X-ray eyes. Speaking to the girl, Lin said that she was too confident over a well-hidden bag because he immediately noticed it. It was indeed a beautiful sight for him, and it looked like he would have to get used to looking at beautiful girls with X-ray eyes. Cao Bailo didn't care that he discovered it, because according to her, sooner or later Lin Tian would end up in her hands. Standing up straight, Lin told the girl that she should worry about herself. Putting on a cool face, Lin Tian asked Cao Bailo if she wanted to know who had drunk her powder in the end. The girl sat down on a chair and looked down at her glass in shock. After realizing everything, she called Lin disgusting. Then, as Cao Bailo grew weak and fell asleep, she added that Lin Tian was a bad person. There was still one more thing for the student that he hadn't done. Lin Tian licked his lips and looked amused. Cao Bailo said that what Lin Tian was going to do was illegal. Lin Tian was surprised that this could be a violation of the law. They looked at each other awkwardly. Lin Tian put the food in his bag, saying that it was a traditional Chinese virtue and there was no violation of the law. Cao Bailo was baffled. As Lin Tian tied up the bag, he added that she didn't have the faintest idea how to invite anyone to dinner. And in fact, he hadn't eaten much at all. The most popular streamer couldn't understand how he could think about leftovers when there was such a beautiful woman in front of him that it was impossible to resist. Ling Tian couldn't understand what was wrong. How could she be more important than food? He made Cao Bailo mad. The plate of meatballs was on the very edge of the table. Apparently, Cao Bailo accidentally brushed the tablecloth in a fit of emotion. The plate flew down. It broke, and the food ended up on the floor. No one had ever seen Lin Tian so angry before. He tugged on the streamer's arm. He pulled her onto his lap, butt up. His hand went up high. She slapped Cao Bailo's ass. While crying, she called Lin Tian disgusting. He accused her of what he considered her worst sins, squandering food and breaking dishes. Even her dad didn't hit her. Lin Tian decided to take care of Cao Bailo's upbringing instead of her father, since he wasn't doing it. The spanking continued. A smiling Lin Tian carried full bags of lobster and wine. Poor Cao Bailo lay in tears. At the exit, Lin Tian crossed paths with the Maori. The Maori didn't expect to see it. He was contacting Miss Cao, trying to find out what was wrong with her. She said she was fine. She wondered if the Maori had succeeded. He nodded, saying that everything was ready and Lin Tian would soon meet an unfortunate fate. Lin Tian was already sitting on a bus near Sicily. Oddly, he noticed for the first time that she was also a very pretty girl. The police siren was making a loud sound. The bus was surrounded by police cars. He was approached on the basis of the report of an interested citizen with the fact that he is suspected of hiding a pile of stolen money. Lin Tian was asking about the stolen money. Cecilia tugged on Lin Tian's sleeve as he got off the bus. She shoved the gun into his hand. Lin Tian was shocked, not understanding why he needed a gun. The policeman chuckled. He shouted that the suspect had a gun. All units were ordered to shoot at him immediately. Lin Tian realized that he had never held a real gun before. The police guns were aimed at the terrified Lin Tian. The chief of them looked smug. He gave the command, "Fire," but his orders were disobeyed, which made the officer angry. The disobedient subordinate was Zhu Weiwei, who covered Lin Tian with her body. Shaking her head, Zhu Yue spoke to Officer Yuan, asking him to take a close look at what the student was holding. Lin's gun was a water pistol. Lin Tian himself silently shot water to prove Zhu Weiwei's words, but Officer Yuan didn't stop. He continued to accuse Lin Tian of having thoughts of resisting the police. So the student is dangerous. After looking around, Zhu Weiwei told the officer that the police had blocked the roads in all directions around them, and Lin Tian couldn't escape, so there was no need to shoot. Officer Yuan pointed out that Zhu Weiwei was investigating Lin Tian. He asked the girl why she helps the student, because she has a dislike for him. Officer Yuan believed that Zhu Weiwei had overheated in the sun. The girl replied that she had no personal dislike for the student. She relies only on justice. Zhu Weiwei said that the bad guys should not be allowed to leave, and the good guys should be caught. Lin Tian hugged Zhu Weiwei, calling her Aunt Zhu, Sister Zhu, and Officer Zhu. He admired and was touched that she called him a nice guy. Unexpectedly, Officer Yuan abruptly pushed Zhu Weiwei away from Lin Tian. The girl fell, and Lin was angry at the officer's action. The student considered his action too much. To Officer Yuan, it was stupid that Lin Tian was still thinking of helping others. Grinning, he asked Lin if he thought that without Officer Zhu. The student would have someone else to support him. Lin Tian warned the officer not to speak too loudly. Lin turned to the doorway and ordered them to get out. Something quickly flew out of the passageway. It turned out to be a drone with a video camera. Officer Yuan was furious at what he saw. He grabbed the drone, clutching it in his hand. The officer threw the device, breaking it to smithereens. The drone was destroyed. Officer Yuan was waiting for Lin Tian's next antics. The guy asked if the officer knew that the #1 streamer, Cao Bailo, and the #2 streamer, Tian Feifei, were actresses under Lin Tian's banner. Taking a gun from one of the policemen, the officer asked what was special about money, and added that to spend it, you need to be alive. Lin Tian sighed in frustration and called the officer really dumb, asking if he knew such a thing as broadcasting. Officer Yuan's wig fell off. He pointed the gun at Lin and asked if the student thought he could do whatever he wanted with the money. Suddenly, someone touched the gun, calling it very realistic. It was a strange woman. There were others beside her. One of them said that Tian Feifei had informed them that they might meet her here. So the man immediately came to the place and, in his opinion, did not lose out. All the fans piled on top of Officer Yuan. They also considered its shape realistic. The woman said that she saw it live on Cao Bailo, and the sight was amazing for the fan. Everyone thought that the specified location was very real for them shooting. Cao Bailo's powder finally wore off. The girl regained consciousness. She asked the Maori if everything was ready and if Lin Tian would laugh again. The old man replied that there would be no problems with him in the team. The girl reached into her pocket to call and take care of Lin Tian, as well as let him know the consequences of contacting Cal Bilo. The streamer pulled out her phone. She was at a loss for words. It turned out that Lin had switched Cal Bilo's phone. There were 3 telephones on the bus window. Turning to Cecilia, he told her how he thought Cal Bilo's plan wasn't so simple and decided to use her phone for a live broadcast, just like with Jian Feifei's phone. Just as Lin Tian said, the strength of the crowd is really great. He could now sign the contract with confidence. Lin Tian signed his name. The second streamer was assembled. There was only one left, and everything was simple for Lin. Turning around and addressing the fans, the student asked if they liked this live broadcast under the open sky. After shouting, Lin Tian told him to memorize it from Cal Bilo's live broadcast and follow his broadcast. He added that a big draw is planned for tomorrow. Commentators on the broadcast wrote that Lin is the owner who exceeded the number of gifts the day before yesterday. People should have called their friends. The viewers wrote that Jian Feifei, whom Lin Tian had given those gifts to, was actually quite good, innocent, and uncomplicated. Lin agreed with the commentators, but there weren't enough viewers. Suddenly, there was a shot. All the fans were scared. The officer warned Lin that he would not shoot him, but that the police would search the bus. For a student, this was a great opportunity to act. Lin excitedly asked the officer not to search, because the broadcast was watched by many people. In a whisper, the officer told the student that if he offended Her Highness, Lin Tian would be in trouble. The officer took the phone from the window of the transport. He ordered everyone to get on the bus and search it. The police began to move in. Lin Tian placed his hand on the officer's shoulder and thanked him. The officer was flustered by the boy's change of expression. He asked the student if he had something to say in his own defense, but it was too late. Lin Tian replied that the fact that the officer smashed the phone that was being broadcast from only makes people want to know more about what's going on. Lin stated that everyone present is part of his broadcast. The officer did not understand the student's words because he should be caught soon. One of the policemen said that there was a suspicious suitcase on the bus, which was similar to the missing one. The officer ordered it opened. He was satisfied, because he thought that Lin Tian wouldn't be able to avoid something planted by his people. The policeman opened the suitcase. There was something they hadn't expected to see. The officer didn't understand the police's reaction.